The periodic table of elements. In this video, you are going to learn about the periods, which are also known as the rows in the periodic table of elements. And you're also going to learn about the groups, also known as the columns of the periodic table of elements, and how they tell you information pertaining to each element's atom. The periodic table is organized in rows. So if you notice, the periodic table is not a nice perfect rectangle, and so we're going to discuss why. So periods, which are the rows on the periodic table, tells you how many shells, also known as orbitals or energy levels, the atom has. Now we've zoomed in on the periodic table. So if I look at the first period, also known as the first row, that tells me that hydrogen and helium need one shell or one orbital or one energy level to hold their electrons. And if you recall, the first shell can only hold a maximum of 2 electrons. Then when I look at my second period, so that's lithium through neon, that tells me all of those elements need a maximum of 2 shells or 2 orbitals or 2 energy levels when I draw the atom. And if you recall, the second energy level can hold a maximum of 8 electrons. And then I look at the third period, which tells me I need 3 shells for my electrons, and so on and so forth. For fourth period and the fifth period, I need 5 shells. Sixth period, I need 6 shells. In the seventh period, I wonder how many shells I'm going to need. Oh, that's right, 7. So when we quickly glance at a periodic table and I look at the periods, I immediately know how many shells to draw. The periodic table is organized in another way. So we just looked at how the periods, aka the rows of the periodic table. So now we're going to look at the groups, which are the columns of the periodic table. So the groups are the atoms have the same number of electrons in their outer shell. So that's also known as their outer orbital or their outer energy level. So if we focus on the first column, all right, also known as the first group, that tells me that all of these elements have the same number of electrons in their last shell. And if I look at the second group, all right, which is the second column, and notice it's got the number 2 at the top, that tells me all of these elements have the same number of electrons in their last orbital, also known as last shell. All right, and the same goes for the third group, the fourth group. They all have the same number of electrons in their outer shell. And that goes all the way from group 1 all the way to group 18. So group 18, they all have the same number of electrons in their outer shell. So let's look at the first column. And if you look, this first group has a number 1 at the top. So it tells me it's group number 1. And what I know is all of the elements in that first group have the same number of electrons in their outer shell or their outer orbital or outer energy level. And if I look at group 2, that tells me all of those elements, when we look at their atom, they have the same number of electrons in their outer shell. And same for 3 and group 4, group 5, all the way to group 18. And when I quickly glance at a periodic table, I can know that at group 18, all of these elements, when I look at their atoms, they're going to have the exact same number of electrons in their outermost shell. So one last review. When I look at the periods, which are my rows, that's going to tell me how many shells or orbitals I need. All right. If I look at the groups, that tells me that all of the elements in the same group or same column are going to have the exact same number of electrons in their outermost shell.